2, 1, and then
3,
visual
2,
clap.
1. Okay.
Welcome to what's the final day here at our Layline 33rd America's Cup Anarchy Report. It's a little chilly here, Jimmy. Nice to see you. Welcome to Sailing Anarchy. I think this is your first time you've been on with us.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been a lot of fun to watch this week, and we're real happy that you won. We know you're a longtime fan, but what do they do about they turn off the heat the minute you win, or what?
I know, I tell you what, it's in here though, it feels warm to what it was like on the water. I tell you what, that's got to be the coldest America's Cup I've ever done.
I mean, what's your setup? Or do you have like the quilted down comforter underneath your clothes, or what?
It got to the point where basically I was wearing that much gear that I couldn't put anything on more because I couldn't move, you know, so you just had to sort of grin and bear it. But it was, the sitting around out there was tough, you know, because it was just so cold.
And you sat around for both days for, well, more than 2 days, but hours and hours and hours and hours. And
yeah, it was a long day, especially on these boats, you know, with the seaway.
Yeah.
They don't do too well in the seaway, you know, so it's just hard to sort of cradle a boat through the day. And yesterday, it's just so stressful, especially with the wing.
Yeah, I mean, we figured with with motors on, you might as well have a heater.
Yeah, it's sort of a fight to go down the hatch of the engine, that's for sure.
Let's get to the racing. You know, we watched in race 1. You know, you drew the penalty and then you got stuck head to wind. You know, I think with all the jabber beforehand about how the wing is so versatile and you go backwards and forwards and all this, what happened with that?
Yeah, it's funny, you know, and to be honest, it's a bit humbling as well. You know, it was actually a good experience, but I think it kind of showed kind of how underprepared we were for the racing, both teams. And the reason for that is we were so focused on boat development and the technical side, and it was such a, especially with the wing, it was such a new thing. There's just so many complex issues with the boat, so the actual sailing time that you're sheeted on, it's actually quite small. By the time you get off the mooring, get the wing up, etc., etc. So that time, that small amount of time is so valuable, you're pretty much using it just for boat speed.
Right.
And our first, you know, I was just joking around with Tim, but our first go around a racetrack was race 1.
Yeah.
First go, you know, so yeah, it just goes to show how.
So talk us through it. How did you get stuck? What happened exactly?
It was basically, my hands are up, you know, it was my mistake, but we were in a pretty controlling position and I had to push it pretty hard to get the penalty, I had to get close. But what that did was got me a little too close, got overlapped to windward, and the mistake was that at about 1:40, we still had the option to just bear away and jibe, and I think we would have been pretty much on time for the racing. But as we've seen training with these multi-hulls, you can sort of be in great shape the whole start, and then in that last minute, you know, things can just completely reverse.
Right.
But it was, look, it was something we learnt, you know, it's just really tough to control the wing head to wind, you know, and the fact that we've always got a safety stay, what we call a baby stay attached to the front of the boat, means we have to constantly furl the jib to change tacks. Right. So it was a little harder to control that head to wind part. But also, honestly, like I was just really impressed with Lingy to get out of that situation, you know, and because they were on the ropes, you know, and then they were able to reverse it around. It was pretty good.
Yeah, but it didn't end up mattering in that race, certainly. And I think, you know, we were watching it, and we were actually commentating in the Estrella Dam bar. We took over the bar, and we were doing our own commentary there. We had hundreds of people watching, and you know, I sort of was looking around. And I don't remember what I was doing, and I looked up, and you know, they showed that shot where you guys were 10, 12 degrees higher and just eating them up. And I looked and I went, holy shit! What was your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we
You already got one.
we pushed the boat harder in those 2 races than we ever have. You know, we've got all these alarm systems on the boat, fibre optic cables, and I can tell you the alarms are ringing, you know, for both races, especially after that, you know, that first race coming off the line like
Really?
that. But also, I think we had a few things roll our way. We had pressure to the left there behind them. We were able to lift up inside, but. You know, I think we sort of both misjudged the wind strength for that first beat. I mean, they were set up for a lot lighter winds. You know,
Right.
they started with a code 0.
Right.
So I think all of those little things added up. But look, the boat, once it's flying and it's powered up, that's its strength.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about surprises and head games. Both boats have had spy boats following the other around for 10 months. I mean, since they hit the water, right? I've seen them. They have their little radar. They've got GPS. They're plotting thousands and thousands of data points. You had to have known the relative performance of the boats. You had to have known that you were going to be able to pull out the kind of leads downwind that you did, didn't you? It wasn't a surprise, was it?
It was, to be honest.
Really?
You know, it was, because the hardest thing is to know when they're doing all those data points and getting the laser shots and that, is to accurately judge the wind speed. And you just never know what it's up at 60 metres. But also, a lot of our stuff, you know, they showed good numbers and they were quite fast. But I think, you know, I was genuinely surprised at our downwind performance. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Maybe a bit of it was we were in the right place at the right time. You know, I think the guy, you know, I reckon JK just had an absolute blinder of a regatta, you know. Nailed some really key moments in the race. But yeah, I was genuinely surprised at how well we went downwind down the range. You know, really.
So when Russell said before the event, and really the conventional wisdom was, there's this crossover and it's 8 knots or whatever, you guys really believed it?
Yeah, I actually thought it might have been a little bit higher, you know, my guess. But we also made a big push to take weight off the boat, you know, before the racing. You know, we took a lot of stuff off. We really compromised, you know, in certain areas. And I think, you know, when we raced the boat over the last couple of days, that's the lightest we've ever had it. And I think that really brought us down the range and probably explains the downwind performance as well.
Talk about taking weight out. Obviously, a lot of electronics on the boat. You know, you walk around with your backpack and your Yoda glasses. But you've also been heard saying that, you know, you don't really like it. You kind of like to just sail the boat. How much of it are you relying on your heads-up display, and how much of it is it like Luke when he puts the targeting computer away?
A lot of this boat, actually, especially with the wing, is really going off the numbers. You know, really been quite disciplined with that. As time went on and we got to the racing, obviously you just start to, you know, feel the boat a bit more, and you can start to look around a bit more, and that's something that, you know, Glenn Ashby was just pushing me from day one to really, you know, it's all about anticipation sailing. You know, you've just got to be a couple of steps ahead. If the boat flies, it's too late, you know, and you're slow. So, but getting to that point took a while, to actually look outside the boat and know that the boat was sailing well. And that's where, you know, the eyewear system worked. And but it's definitely a boat with the way it loads that you've got to be on top of the, you know, the alarms and all the loads throughout the boat, because it can, you know, if it goes bad, it can go bad real quick.
In that first race, when you realized how quickly you were gaining, did the mood change on the boat? Did the tenseness sort of evaporate, or you guys are all business on the boat?
Mate, it was all business. And to be honest, it was a real highlight for me to see the guys in a tough situation in that first race. You know, I was sure they had the penalty, but still being back, just to see it, just didn't faze them one bit, you know, and that was, yeah, that was really, really cool.
Now, in the second race, the beat was real different. You know, we were watching them. Obviously, everyone was with the dominance in the first race. Everyone, I think, was shocked to see that righty come through and Alinghi take that advantage back. Did you get worried?
Yeah, I knew they would come back stronger, because, like, let's face it, they're a, you know, pretty awesome sailing team. You look at some of the guys in that sailing crew, and it's pretty impressive numbers and results. So I knew they'd come out swinging, and I think the fact that I knew they'd make a configuration change after what both teams learnt from the first race. Right. So I knew we'd have a real boat race on our hands, and, you know, obviously we didn't see the breeze shifting as hard as it did. You know, we didn't think it'd do that, but mate, I was expecting a real battle, to be honest.
And then you just walked away from it. Did you throttle back there at the end?
No, not at all. We just went 100% the whole time, and it was just the fact that we, on the first reach, I mean, the riding moment, we were really able to stretch out. You know, it's just a simple thing in sailing. As soon as you crack sheets, the riding moment is the king. So, but then as we got down, it was more of a VMG run on the second reach leg, and the wind started to get lighter, and yeah, it made it a little bit more exciting, you know.
Yeah. Do you think had we ended up in Ras Al Khaimah with these sort of steady 7 to 9 knot sea breezes, that you guys still would have been able to pull it out fairly easily?
I don't know. I mean, we did race. You'd have to say on the lighter end of the spectrum.
Sure.
And I think the boat proved that, you know, how good its performance was, you know. But who knows? I mean, certainly in the seaway, I thought we might have had a bit of an edge with the riding moment, you know, just being able to sort of get through the seaway a bit better, and maybe in the flatter water they may have, you know, had a bit of an edge. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it was still pretty exciting.